science journeys, please tap like and subscribe, and feel free to use the playlist link in the description to keep learning while you gently drift. What city country are you watching from right now? You find yourself at the boundary between night and dawn. The city is very quiet. Even in stillness, a soft web of sensors remains awake. Traffic lights idle in a resting state. Building facades, wrapped in glass, hold the last cool breaths of night. Somewhere on a rooftop, a small weather station remembers the wind with a delicate spinning cup, and a thin antenna passes that memory along. A whisper in the network. The gentle rhythm continues. Imagine the city as a tapestry woven from many repeating threads. Each thread follows a rule. Each rule is a calm instruction. Measure this. Compare to that. Adjust a little. Then measure again. The patterns loop and loop just as you follow your breath without effort. In and out, in and out. A slow and familiar cycle. Street lights fade one notch lighter, then another, guided by sky sensors that track the pale spread of dawn. The change is not abrupt. It is measured, incremental, as if the city was stretching slowly in bed, letting morning arrive without hurry. Inside a quiet apartment, you find yourself in a room that knows your routine, not because it spies, but because it learns the gentle timing of your life. The blinds rise halfway, letting in a muted ribbon of light. The temperature control drifts by fractions of a degree. Not too warm, not too cool. Just a little adjustment based on yesterday and the day before. The air feels balanced. The fan hums with a low, rounded sound, an even note with no edges. The gentle rhythm continues. The water that runs in a sink follows a choreography too. Deep beneath the streets, a pressure sensor notices a tiny change, something the eye would not see, a pulse that would pass you by if you were hurrying. But the algorithm is not hurried. It receives, compares, and smooths the reading like a hand smoothing a sheet. It removes the little jitters, keeping only the calm trend. Somewhere else a pump responds, not with a jerk, but with a gradual rise. Demand moves, supply follows, and then both settle into a plateau. In the half-light, a tram rests at a depot with a patient posture, while its schedule lives in a server that watches time in a tranquil way. The schedule is not rigid. It is soft at the edges, responsive to the flow of people who will soon drift into stations. At a subtle signal, the tram wakes, lights brighten, doors slide. The motors begin with a gentle curve of acceleration, not a kick. Electric power flows from the grid, which is itself guided by algorithms that balance the many requests of the morning. You imagine the grid like a pond rippling with small waves of demand, coffee makers, heaters, screens warming to life. The management system sees this texture of use and smooths it, storing a little here, releasing a little there, so that the whole surface remains calm. You drift outdoors. The pavement has a faint warmth left from yesterday afternoon, and a clean scent from a light night rain. The city breathes. Along the curb, a slender strip of smart soil measures moisture and knows knows when to share a sip with the roots of young trees. The irrigation frees tiny droplets as if sprinkling a story, timed to the dawn so leaves can dry slowly in daylight. The algorithm guiding the water is modest. It compares predicted rain to the current dampness, to the season, to the hour when the sun is gentle. There is no rush, only careful timing, a choreography of difference and delay. Imagine yourself moving along a street where cars are few. A small autonomous shuttle rolls quietly. Its route is the same, again and again, a loop that it has learned well. It watches the crosswalk in a soft, persistent way. The computer inside works through frames of reality, as if flipping through pages at a delicate tempo. It finds edges, colors, shapes, and motions. It has a memory of yesterday's morning pedestrians, a sense of the typical density for this calm hour, and a way to blend that memory with what it sees. That blending is like stirring sugar into tea, little by little, so no taste is too strong. The gentle rhythm continues. In the soft light, the city feels like an organism with many circulations. Food moves from warehouses to small shops and apartments. Each van that carries groceries follows a quiet pattern built overnight. The routes were computed by algorithms that like repetition. The rules are simple. Minimize distance, avoid waste, keep things balanced. The vans do not race. The schedule is padded for serenity. Some packages carry a tiny tracker, sending pulse-like location updates. Not every pulse is needed. The system waits for one update, and then another, and averages them to estimate the true place of the van. There is trust in that average, like trusting the center of a balanced beam rather than a single measurement. At the base of a tall building, you pass a loading bay where machines lift crates with careful grace. Nothing clangs, motors glide, and a small panel shows a slowly changing graph. The flow of goods, the time between deliveries, the idle sections of the day. You feel the calm appeal of the routine. For the algorithm, the most beautiful shape is not a spike, but a smooth curve. The plan aims for steadiness. If one lift pauses, another takes a little more, and the system returns to its preferred rhythm, a gentle give and take. You step inside a building where the lobby air is cool and quiet. Listen for a moment to the soft sigh of vents. Their flow is not binary, not only on or off, but a continuous spectrum, tuned by valves that move through many tiny positions. The building management system feels the temperature, the carbon dioxide, the humidity. It does not panic. It does not overcorrect. It moves in the way of a well-trained hand on a dimmer, always seeking the smoothest path back to the middle. You find comfort in that restraint. The walls do not need to know your name to keep you calm. They only need to watch patterns that repeat predictably. The slow drift of warmth after sunrise, the tiny uptick of exhalations as people arrive, the midday lull when the lobby empties for a short time. As you ride a quiet elevator, you notice the gentle intelligence in its stop pattern. It groups requests, learning the morning same minutes each day. In the early hours, there are fewer stops, and the cabin floats from floor to floor with an almost musical pace. The controller uses a simple principle: conserve energy by carrying people in flowing batches and by avoiding wasteful back and forth movement. The rule repeats, and the schedule, day after day, becomes smoother. On the street again, you pass by street lights with small antennas and modest sensors tucked near the top. They listen for the texture of sound on the street, not to pry, only to distinguish the ordinary murmur from a rare shriek of tires or a sudden crash-like spike. The system uses thresholds and averages, watching for patterns that belong to normal days and patterns that do not. Most of the time, it registers nothing but calm. When it hears the ordinary, the response is no response at all. That calm absence is a kind of care as well. You find a quiet square where a fountain glows with a silver tone. The water turns in a circle, and the pumps beneath it are guided by a simple loop. Pressure rises and falls within a narrow band. The controller listens and nudges, just as you might make micro adjustments to your breathing as you settle deeper into rest. The light on the fountain follows the sun too, not chasing it, simply drifting along the same path. In the evening the illumination grows, and in the morning it gently retreats. The city's buses begin moving more steadily now. Their routes are like arteries, repeating day after day. The supervisory system watches traffic density, but not with alarm. It experiments a little with timing, adjusting the interval between buses by small increments. If the gap grows large, one bus slows a touch, another speeds a touch, and the pair gradually meet in the middle, a gentle correction that continues until the desired spacing returns. This approach keeps the system from swinging wildly. It prefers convergence to perfection. Imagine yourself in a small cafe that is also part of this calm web. A barista moves with practiced gestures. The inventory system tracks the beans, the milk, the cups. It measures how much remains, compares those tallies to patterns of consumption from previous mornings, and suggests a light restock. The recommendation is not a command. It is an offering, an informed whisper. The app that manages deliveries chooses a slot when nearby vans are already passing, so the change to the local flow is minimal. In this soft coordination, you sense the care for energy and time. Overhead, a drone follows a permitted path, its rotors tuned to a low, even hum. It carries a small package along a lane the size of a ribbon. The path is not lonely. There are many such routes, but each is spaced and scheduled to prevent crowding. A central planner calculates these paths each night, seeking not the shortest line for every trip, but the most balanced arrangement for all. The drone's brain does not replan every second. It trusts the plan and makes tiny corrections when the wind grows playful. Stability first, cleverness second. You return to the streets and trace the edges of a park. Soil sensors beneath the grass speak to a system that knows the influences of shade and slope. Some areas hold water longer, others dry quickly. The algorithm, grateful for the slow repetition repetition of seasons, assigns each zone a different watering pattern, then observes the outcomes. It learns in a way that feels like careful practice rather than sudden revelation. The city appreciates reliability. No fireworks, only gradual improvements that make tomorrow a little more comfortable than today. The power grid beneath the city is a layered system. Imagine transformers that are listening posts, quietly estimating the flow and direction of electricity. They balance loads like a patient juggler. At times, rooftop solar panels donate a smooth trickle of power. At other times, battery banks in basements accept energy and hold it like a library storing silent words. The control center follows a guiding principle. If supply begins to tilt, it reaches for many small adjustments instead of one large one. A household heater waits a minute longer to start. A chilled storage unit coasts for another 3 minutes before it requests energy again. No single home feels the change, but across thousands of devices, the effect is significant and protective. The gentle rhythm continues. You notice that the train you plan to take is slightly delayed. The system responds in modest ways. A digital sign changes gently, font unhurried, and the reason appears in a neutral tone. A small algorithm searches for potential chain reactions. If this train is late, another downstream could be crowded. A suggestion appears for the next train, the one that will be less full, and your wrist device vibrates with a soft note. You choose calmly. The city meets you where you are and adjusts in ways that barely disturb the surface of your day. Imagine yourself pausing by a window. Across the street, a school stirs to life. The building schedule tells lights to rise in stages, first the hallways, then classrooms as the first staff arrive. Air purifiers begin at low speed, slowly growing as the carbon dioxide level inches upward with the presence of people. The sensors are not prying. They watch the air, not the faces. The algorithms care about the invisible rhythms of breath and warmth that all bodies share. That universality is soothing. The system does not need to know who you are to support your comfort and safety. In your pocket, your phone aligns itself quietly with the city's networks. It negotiates bandwidth with a small, polite protocol, asking for a little and only taking what it needs. Nearby, a street cabinet monitors fiber optic lines, translating flashes of light into messages. The electronics inside remain cool thanks to a simple thermal system. Heat sinks draw warmth away, and fans turn slowly, controlling temperature within a narrow band without abrupt starts and stops. Over time, these motions become percussive beats in the techno of the city, unassuming, regular, and barely audible. You find yourself in a library, one of the calm hearts of the smart city. The shelves stand in measured rows. The lighting is tuned to a color temperature that helps eyes rest. A small analytic system studies which topics see more interest at different times of day. It does not track names. It only perceives flows. In the early morning, quiet study is popular. Later, reading groups swell gently. The system certain chairs, opening particular rooms, and posting signs that guide without urgency. This is applied softness, science used to make a place feel more like a sanctuary. The city's health services operate with similar restraint. Clinics coordinate schedules with respect for sleep patterns and commute times. A predictive system estimates when waiting rooms might become busy, and it nudges appointments toward calmer periods. The updates arrive as suggestions rather than commands. Behind the scenes, ventilation shifts especially gently in these spaces. Air changes per hour increase slightly when occupancy rises, then settle back, protecting both calm and resources. Consider the waste and recycling flows that move quietly through alleys and over back roads. Smart bins do not cry for attention when they are half empty. They speak when they are ready, measuring fullness with a small sensor that sends a single sparse message. Collection routes are generated in a way that discourages overlap. One truck glides through a set of blocks, while another glides elsewhere. The aim is to minimize stops and starts, which saves energy and keeps the morning soundscape soft. When the bins are emptied, the sensors reset like a relaxed breath, and the cycle begins again. Over in a transit operations room, the walls hold screens showing the city's veins of movement. Yet, the room is not noisy. The operators sit in focused ease, monitoring dashboards that favor averages over spikes. The algorithms they oversee are like gardeners. When weeds of congestion appear, the response is not to pull frantically, but to adjust the watering of time and space. A traffic light stays green a little longer in one direction, a little shorter in another. The changes are subtle, tuned over months and years using feedback from countless cycles. Drivers feel less like they are being commanded and more like they are moving with the city's tide. You walk past a small substation that hums with a soothing tone. You imagine the currents inside, converting from one level to another, steady and reliable. This steadiness comes from control systems that behave like composed musicians. They adjust the pitch of the hum, the voltage of the lines, by listening to the smallest shifts and moving confidently but mildly. The goal is not perfection. The goal is stability, even under the small surprises of daily life. As the morning matures, you sense the city's appetite easing into its customary pattern. People are at work, at school, at tasks that repeat. Algorithms enjoy repetition. They learn from it, as you do when you practice anything with patience. In a hyper-connected city, these lessons accumulate. A thermostat understands a building's thermal mass, the way a stone floor stores the cool of night and releases it after noon. A water system remembers how long it takes for pressure to rise in a certain neighborhood. A transit app understands that the midday lull is not truly empty, merely gentle, and sets vehicles at wider, more efficient intervals that match that softness. You enter a co-working space where shared desks form a quiet grid. Occupancy sensors, mixed with privacy settings, measure just enough to share accurate room availability. A pattern emerges through the day, and the system takes that pattern as permission to plan. When occupancy is low, lights dim half a shade, and ventilation taps the brakes. When many arrive around lunch, everything lifts slightly. It is all incremental, careful, pencil across paper to trace a curve without lifting the tip. The city sky carries thin clouds that act like a soft blanket to the sun, moderating glare. Solar panels across rooftops respond with a slow decline from their full morning production, then a slow rise as the clouds drift away. A forecasting model receives satellite images, statistical predictions of cloud motion, and the very recent history of panel output. It blends these inputs into a forecast that feeds the grid. The model is not a fortune teller. It is a calm synthesizer, a maker of sensible averages. If it anticipates a drop in solar input, the grid prepares by restocking batteries, just a little, by inviting a few flexible loads to shift by minutes. The gentle rhythm continues. You wander into a marketplace that feels like a steady pulse. Sensors count feet at the entrances, not to track, but to estimate the flow. As the count rises, a subtle music volume increases to absorb some chatter, making individual conversations feel private. When the flow decreases, the sound lays back. The same system suggests to vendors when to restock popular items so that there are fewer rushes, fewer empty shelves, less waste. The suggestion respects context. Weekends differ from weekdays. Fair weather differs from rainy afternoons. The repeated experience feeds the model's understanding over time, and the improvements are small but cumulative. In a low building near the river, the water treatment plant moves along the most predictable rhythm of all. The river brings what it brings. The city returns water cleaner than it arrived. Filters and membranes are the quiet heroes here, and their management follows simple thresholds. When pressure across a filter rises slightly, a small backwash cycle begins, gently sending a wave through to clear microparticles. Valves switch positions in choreographed pairs. Nothing slams. Everything is cushioned, sliding into place with a deliberate grace that extends the life of every component. Predictive maintenance routines watch for trends in vibration, temperature, and pressure. If a bearing warms by a degree beyond the typical afternoon plateau, the system marks a note. The maintenance team receives not an urgent ping, but a calm invitation to examine it at the next scheduled window. By late morning, traffic looks different than it did at dawn. Pedestrians gather at crosswalks with a relaxed clustering. Microcontrollers in the signal boxes sense the group via pressure mats or optical counters with privacy filters that blur details into anonymous counts. The algorithm can extend the walk phase by a few seconds when a larger group forms. Those extra seconds feel generous. They prevent pushing and rushing. The vehicles that wait recognize a small adjustment in their own cycles but feel no dramatic impact. Equilibrium is maintained. You find yourself near a quiet logistics hub. Vehicles of different sizes move in and out, carrying food, parcels, materials. The route optimizer has already shaped their day, but it continues to refine, not constantly, just at reserved intervals. Every so often, the system evaluates whether a slight reroute would maintain balance, using fresh traffic data if needed. Most of the time, the answer is no change. The beauty lies in the city's resistance to fidgeting. It prefers the expected to the exciting. It leaves space for people to be a little late, to notice is softened by blinds that angle themselves to protect eyes and screens. The control algorithm seeks a target lux level and aims for it, not exactly, but within a comfortable band. That band prevents constant adjustments, the kind that would feel nervous. There is relief in this tolerance, in letting light be natural, gently guided rather than seized. In another corner of the city, a data center hums, supporting the cloud services that many devices consult. The cooling system is often where efficiency quietly hides. Big fans respond to temperature sensors placed with care. Instead of reacting to each tiny fluctuation, the controller uses a kind of smoothing that treats a series of readings as a whole. One hot second does not cause panic. Only a change that persists across a calm interval prompts a response. This approach prevents wasted cycles and the needless turning on and off of equipment. The center stays cool, and the sound remains a low ocean-like hush. You continue through the city and arrive at a museum that uses technology in an unobtrusive way. Visitor flows are observed. If one gallery becomes slightly dense, the system introduces a gentle recommendation in the app to explore a quieter wing. The recommendation might mention a certain piece with soft lighting that looks particularly gentle today. People spread out. The density returns to a comfortable level. No one notices the hand that smoothed the crowd. It is as if the museum itself has a sense of courtesy. Along a boulevard, cyclists roll with a slow confidence. The bike lanes change width through the day, using embedded lights that adjust the margin with a steady glow. In the morning, when the cycling wave is strong, the lane expands into a shared shoulder. Later, it narrows again. The change is guided by counts during previous days and the day at hand. The edge lights fade from one state to another, not flickering, and the membrane between spaces feels soft rather than strict. The city negotiates gently with itself. At noon, the sun sits high. Air shimmering above rooftops tells a story of gradual warming. Buildings respond with a knowledge of their own thermal inertia. Those with heavy walls have learned that a few hours from now the sun will still be strong, so they begin cooling slowly ahead of time. Those with lighter envelopes wait, saving energy while remaining prepared. The control systems share high-level information with the grid, a quiet promise to reduce demand at a certain hour in exchange for lower rates, a mutual agreement made days ago. These energy contracts are automated but caring. They serve both stability and fairness. Once in a while, small glitches occur. A sensor drifts slightly. A clock loses half a second. Redundancies step in without commotion. A backup reading is chosen. Time is resynchronized in a soft handshake. The city tolerates these small imperfections because it was designed to recognize that perfection is brittle. Much better to have robust routines that carry on. The gentle rhythm continues. As the afternoon lengthens, imagine yourself in a shaded courtyard where the air is sweet with leaves and a distant baker's trace of bread. Public seating adjusts automatically as people choose to cluster in certain pockets. A bench warms slightly in winter or cools slightly in summer thanks to tiny capillaries that carry tempered fluid. The controls behind this comfort respond pacing every change. 2 people sit, then a third. Only when the cluster becomes stable does the system release a bit more warmth or coolness. A passive invitation forms, tangible but not intrusive. Around the midpoint of the day's journey, you might check in with yourself, noticing the slow and steady tempo of your own breath as it joins the city's calm algorithms. How sleepy are you on a scale of 1 to 10? Beyond this moment, the city continues its cycles. A public transit timetable merges with real-time information to present options that arrive with quiet certainty. The difference between a 5-minute wait and a 6-minute wait is expressed with a softness that lowers stress. A countdown displays time in rounded steps. People reading it feel no hurry. They feel awareness. The vehicles approach and depart with predictable motion, their electric motors almost singing. A co-working kitchen anticipates a rush in the late afternoon as people gather for tea. The connected kettle warms at a time that spreads the load. The machine considers the expected arrival of several users and begins heating water a little early, so that not all heating happens at once. The kettle's energy draw is small, but multiplied across the city. Such small choices become a smooth background that keeps the grid from jolts. At a street corner, the smart crosswalk paints a gentle signal onto the ground, activated by the presence of someone waiting. It detects not only motion, but intent, teased out by a balanced model. If the person lingers near the edge for several seconds, the system tilts its probability toward crossing intent and schedules the signal to change soon. The delay is modest. The decision is tempered. The street confers with the person through light and timing, and both adapt to each other's pace. Consider the public lighting system as afternoon slides toward evening. It has learned that the time of sunset shifts day by day. The city lights no longer switch on with a snap at a fixed minute. They rise as the sky hools in color, blending with the twilight. This blending helps the human eye and mind accept the transition. The algorithm watchfully follows the tone of the day rather than a rigid timetable. Street lamps sense the ambient glow from storefronts and adjust downward if area lighting is plentiful. When a storefront goes dark, the street lamp leans in, caring for the shadow that might feel otherwise too deep. In a calm corner of the city, a laboratory studies air quality over a long horizon. The sensors record microscopic patterns, the way pollen rises in certain months, the way fine particles soften under rain. The model trained on that data becomes a patient teacher, sharing simple guidance. On days with a certain pattern of wind and humidity, it suggests opening windows during a specific range of hours for the cleanest indoor air. The suggestion reaches homes and offices with light phrasing, never commanding, always offering an opportunity to align indoor life with the slow, natural cycles of the outside world. Supply meeting demand is a theme that repeats all day. In grocery stores, shelves are backed by storerooms, which are backed by distribution centers. Each layer has a small algorithm that summarizes what happens within. Those summaries flow upward, not as noise, but as digestible signals. A forecast broadcast engine at the top listens to these signals and refreshes expectations at a comfortable cadence, not every minute, but every hour or two. Orders to suppliers are then placed in a way that smooths both ends. The store receives goods when staff are present and rested. The supplier sends goods in full truckloads rather than many little fragments. The system nudges everyone toward the middle path. Imagine yourself walking into a peaceful transit car as the sun dips slightly. Seat occupancy is tracked in aggregates and shown quietly on a screen so that you can choose a more open car. That information is collected with respect for privacy. Blending counts so that the shapes of crowds matter more than the shapes of individuals. The transit car itself has learned that curves in the track cause a slight sway. The suspension adjusts, and the ride becomes more like a glide. Those who doze do not wake at every turn. Garbage processing plants, recycling centers, and composting sites follow their own rhythms. Conveyor belts carry material at a speed tuned to the capacities of downstream sorters. If the input slows, the belts do not spin fast just to keep busy. They decelerate and wait, conserving energy and extending their own life. If a day is especially abundant, the system calls for additional capacity hours from neighboring centers. The city acts like a network of friends who occasionally ask each other for help and who respond with calm willingness. Cybersecurity is part of the city's quiet caretaking, and it too prefers smooth vigilance over alarm. Intrusion detection systems drift over network traffic patterns like a soft brush, looking for unusual textures. They do not react to a single odd packet. They regard the flow as a whole. If a true anomaly persists, a contained response begins, isolating only the minimum needed, like closing a single room's door rather than shutting down the entire building. The outcome is containment without disruption, safety without fear. You notice that many systems share a common philosophy. Measure gently, aggregate thoughtfully, act modestly, observe the result, then repeat. This simple loop lies at the heart of control theory and at the heart of soothing routines. It is in the way thermostats avoid overshoot by seeking the middle. It is in the way traffic signals prevent undue waiting by recognizing both the street that is busy and the street that can rest. It is in the way the city's heart rate remains even when individual moments vary. Now the evening begins to shape shadows across facades. Restaurants and cafes flicker to life in warm hues. The ventilation system in a crowded room senses a richer air, heavier with laughter and conversation, and raises its volume a fraction. A noise model recognizes that increasing airflow, too much would become part of the noise, so it lifts just enough to clear the air while keeping the room sound soft. Lighting shifts to warmer temperatures that signal to circadian rhythms that the day is winding down. The city, aware of body's needs, supports them with choices that align with the gentle biology of sleep. As you walk, you pass by a residential tower. Individual apartments whisper their own preferences to the central system. A family likes a cool bedroom. An elder prefers warmth in the reading moving out of one space can pass into another that needs it. The algorithms handle this exchange with kindness, preventing extremes, keeping energy balanced and comfort even. You find yourself at a waterfront where the tide traces an ancient cycle. The city's flood management works with nature rather than against it. Gates close when the tide is high and a storm is expected. Marshlands absorb what they can. Sensors watch water levels and send data to a forecast that grows more accurate with each season. When heavy rain is predicted, underground storage cavities make room by slowly lowering their usual levels the day before. This anticipatory move is measured, like removing a ladle of soup before adding fresh ingredients, leaving space for what will come. The more you notice, the more you see a common signature. The city avoids sharpness. It prefers curves and ramps. Decisions are softened by delay and by ranges rather than points. Feedback exists everywhere. The aim is not to control humans, but to shape systems around human rhythms in a way that reduces friction. That reduction in friction means less anxiety in the moment-to-moment life of a citizen. The gentle rhythm continues. At dusk, public spaces become more attuned to safety without making a display of it. Cameras watching entry points detect patterns that indicate normal flow. The algorithm's job is to recognize the ordinary and allow it, while quietly noting any pattern that deviates in specific steady ways. Lighting brightens gradually in areas where visibility matters. Remote assistance stands by, not hovering. All these measures serve to create a feeling of ease. They form a cushion beneath the evening. As darkness gathers, energy flows again. Shift shape. Residential demand rises. Commercial demand falls. The grid no longer feeds large office towers and instead supports homes. Battery systems that charge during the day now release their stored calm. Electric vehicles plugged into garages may provide a trickle back to the grid for a short time, with agreements set months ago that let cars contribute without affecting owners' routines. Algorithms ensure fairness, cycling which cars participate so that no single household does more than its comfortable share. Inside homes, lights drift toward warm amber. Screens engage their night settings. The soundscapes of apartments adjust, bringing in a soft hush by masking sudden noise with gentle background sounds. Smart windows detect the temperature drop outside and add a layer of insulation by changing the tint of their inner membrane. All these movements occur slowly enough to be almost imperceptible. They respect the delicate edge between awareness and sleep. In parks, path lights guide late walkers with a glow that responds to presence without startling. A person approaches, and the light rises in a wave ahead, leading. As they pass, the wave falls behind, returning the park to its darker resting state. The behavior is tuned to encourage a calm atmosphere without abrupt changes that jar the senses. Wildlife corridors remain dark, and the system has learned where animals travel by observing over months and seasons. That knowledge shapes light in ways that serve both human and non-human knowledge base grows through these tiny cycles. Data arrives in streams, but storage is selective. Retention policies preserve the shape of what happened without keeping every grain of sand. Numbers are summarized, turned into averages and variances and soft trends. Then old details fade. This, too, is a way of resting. The city does not hoard. It remembers what helps it repeat its care. Night deepens. The streets quiet further. Cleaning bots emerge, moving like silent beetles along sidewalks, sweeping and gathering. Their routes were optimized earlier. They coordinate with each other so that no path is doubled. When a piece of unexpected debris appears, a bot logs it and adjusts its route by a small margin, while another unit allows for the change in its own plan. The result is a fluid dance that maintains harmony. The city cleans itself the way a lake filters its water, slowly and constantly. Imagine yourself watching a high building's facade as it becomes a mirror of the night. Behind the glass, lights wink out in patterns that recur each evening. A simple occupancy model predicts which floors will empty first. It suggests the cleaning staff's route accordingly, so that workflows are efficient and quiet, allowing tired floors to sleep sooner. Energy use declines in layers. Systems switch to a sleep mode, not entirely off, but in a restful state from which they can wake without strain. Fans settle to a whisper. The building's heart rate slows. In transit yards, vehicles return and connect to charging stations. Charging plans are sequenced to shape the night's draw from the grid. The plans consider weather, the next day's expected routes, battery health, and overall demand. Vehicles that are assigned to longer trips tomorrow receive earlier charging slots. Those assigned to lighter routes can wait until dawn. The charging rate itself changes smoothly, ramping up gently, then tapering near the end to care for battery chemistry. That curve of care recalls the way the city treats almost everything. Start softly, end softly, and let the middle be steady. Across neighborhoods, thermostats follow a gentle arc through the night that helps sleep. Bedrooms remain slightly cooler. Living rooms rest in a quiet plateau. Kitchens hold a low temperature with minimal cycling. The systems communicate with the grid to form a virtual orchestra. Each instrument plays its part, yielding to the conductor's slow tempo. If wind generation rises in the early hours, some homes drift into a brief period of small, preserve calm. The dashboards show expectable variances and thresholds. Alarms are rare, and when they appear with restraint. The city is designed to notify only when notice is truly needed. The rest is allowed to pass into the background. This night governance is a part of the city's gentleness. It trusts itself. This trust is built on redundancy. 2 sensors where one would suffice. 3 methods of communication where one would do. Failover paths that are tested, not just imagined. All of these backups are like extra blankets folded at the foot of a bed. Often they are not needed, but their presence eases the mind. You notice small robots tending gardens on a roof. They move with a patient gait, thinning seedlings or checking moisture. Rainwater collected earlier in the day is released in thin threads. The garden's plants have a growth schedule modeled gently over seasons. Harvest times are forecasted within windows, not points, so that picking happens when it feels right, not rushed. The produce flows into local kitchens that planned menus with that same softness. A city can be deeply technical and still honor organic tempos. On a quiet avenue, a streetcar glides through intersections, guided by signals that talk to its onboard systems. The car learns the green wave pattern and rides it like a slow tide. Passengers inside feel no lurch. The doors open and close with a smooth suctioned sound, a sound that repeats exactly the same each time, becoming a tiny lullaby of reliability. This repetition builds trust, and trust relaxes the nerves. You find yourself reflecting on algorithms, the way they embody rules. Some rely on feedback like a thermostat. Some rely on optimization like a route planner. Some rely on prediction like a weather model. In a hyper-connected city, these types often blend, yet their key is not brilliance but balance. They aim to avoid volatility, to keep margins available for the unexpected, and to respond with incremental grace when edges are approached. Consider a simple smoothing average that turns jagged measurements into a calm line. This is not fancy. It is not fashionable. It is enduring. Near the sea, a breakwater watches the incoming swell through wave sensors that bob gently. The data flows to a model that estimates when the swell will be highest and when harbour operations should shift. The port slackens activity during the bumpiest hours, not shutting down entirely, but reducing the need for precise manoeuvres. Workers plan schedules that respect the sea's mood as a matter of normal practice. The result is fewer mishaps and a calmer port. Farther inland, a school of logistics vehicles moves along ring roads. Their coordination follows algorithms that are aware of each other, sharing presence information directly, rather than passing every detail through a central hub. This peer-to-peer awareness is more resilient, like a flock of birds that adjusts to one neighbour at a time, forming patterns without a single leader. The mathematics of such swarms is gentle mathematics, full of averages and influences rather than hard commands. Late at night, when nearly all is quiet, the city uses this time space that prevents overfitting to every whim of a single day. Patterns must be persistent before the model shifts its belief. The phrase for this is regularization, but you need not hold that word. The concept is simple. Do not chase today's mood so much that you forget the character of the month or the season. This helps the city avoid jolts tomorrow. Across apartments, small bedside devices dim to nothing and then cast a tiny nightlight if motion stirs. The sensors detect without seeing faces, relying on shapes and heat. The microcontroller powering this comfort goes to sleep between checks, saving energy in a way that echoes the whole city's rest. The gentle rhythm continues. Above all these layers, there is governance, the care taken by people who set the rules and ensure that the algorithms serve human values. Councils review the city's systems for fairness and accessibility. They ensure that the benefits of smartness reach every neighborhood, not just the affluent areas. Public dashboards show how energy is used, how buses run, how parks are watered, all in clear language with understandable visuals. Even this transparency is done with restraint. The aim is to give people a sense of calm control over their environment, not to flood them with details. As the night brings a deeper quiet, you imagine a control loop, gently guiding streetlight brightness based on moonlight. When the moon is full and white, lights can ease. When the moon is hidden, lights offer a little more companionship. A moon sensor, a few lines of code, a simple mapping from brightness to setting, and the city's lighting becomes a partner to the heavens. It is a small enchantment, scientific and tender. If a cloud passes over a district and drops a quick rain, the pavement sensors feel the cool and dampness. Street sweepers scheduled for that hour step aside. Sweeping wet leaves is less effective. The system waits for a drier window later in the night. Nothing is lost. Work aligns with conditions, and both the city and the workers benefit from the absence of struggle. You pass by a community center where a class meets to learn about the technology that shapes their neighborhood. They absorb the essence: soft control, balanced prediction, respect for privacy, equity of service, energy care, transparency of logic. They learn to read a dashboard. They learn the meaning of a rolling average. They learn how feedback loops can either be stable or unstable, and how the city chooses stability. They leave feeling included, not overwhelmed. Meanwhile, utility pipes carry thermal energy beneath the streets. The network might be a closed-loop network, delivering warmth to buildings in winter and drawing heat away in summer. Flow rates adjust through the night, reducing to a low plateau that ensures readiness without waste. In the early morning, when many buildings request warmth at once, the system gently lifts its pace. Peak events are softened partly by design and partly by habit. People learn that a small shift in their own schedule can help their city breathe easier, and the city supports them with incentives designed to feel like a thank you rather than a rule. Nearby, a microforest sits in the midst of buildings, its understory monitored for moisture and biodiversity. Bioacoustic sensors listen for the presence of different species, turning sounds into almost rests under the same starry canopy as the city and belongs just as much to the strategies of care. Shipping containers in a yard carry sensors that report temperature and shock. When a crane moves a container, the sensors note the moment and file it. If an impact exceeds a comfortable limit, the system highlights it for inspection. Most movements are smooth and the records remain tranquil. Over time, crane operators see from their own dashboards how small changes in their technique reduce such incidents, and their pride in smooth handling becomes part of the yard's silent safety. You think again of your breath, in and out. The city mirrors this with its own breath of data. In flows experience, out goes response. In flows demand, out goes supply. The cycles are varied and intertwined, yet they feel coherent because they obey similar ideas. Bias towards smoothness. Accept delay. Favor averages. Use redundancy. Prefer many small adjustments to one large one. The gentle rhythm continues. Open data sets exist for curious residents and researchers. They download traces of bus positions or energy consumption that have been anonymized and aggregated. In the late night, some write code that visualizes these flows as soft arcs and gradients. The city encourages such exploration because it welcomes many eyes that can spot opportunities to improve, and because it fosters a culture of shared stewardship. This, too, is part of the fabric, individuals participating in the gentle repetition of algorithms that support collective well-being. When rare storms arrive, the city's calm does not evaporate. Plans collected through years of learning unfold. Floodgates move early. Public messages go out that are simple, clear, and patient. Traffic patterns change to support evacuation routes. Shelters open. The city's power to be steady in the exceptional moments grows from its steadiness in ordinary time. Even then, the tone remains composed. People feel guided, not driven. Near midnight, elevators pause and recalibrate. Some can weigh the empty car and adjust their expectations for loads. The calibrations happen slowly, using repeated measurements to correct drift. Small lights glow as systems wake briefly to test themselves. The tests are non-intrusive. They fit into the city's sleep without disturbing it. Adaptive facades on new buildings adjust their porosity to wind. When gusts rise, small fins angle themselves, reducing pressure and noise. The control scheme used here is predictive and also gentle. It looks a few seconds ahead using measurements upstream, and then acts in a way that prevents sudden movement. A building, then, can be quiet even on a breezy night. The transit system performs its own nightly maintenance. Tracks are checked by inspection vehicles that move at a careful speed, shining sensors that see more than eyes can see. Where they find a place that needs attention, they mark it. Crews return the next night. In this way, maintenance is spread out like care over time, rather than stacked into stressful bursts. Riders experience fewer disruptions, and workers experience fewer long nights. Public art installations join the system in their own way. Some pieces change gently with city data, colours shifting with energy usage or the pace of footsteps. Others remain visual anchor that refuses to follow the tide of metrics. The city needs both dynamic responsiveness and quiet constancy. Together, they create a sense of balance that helps citizens find their own balance. Toward the horizon of dawn again, you sense that the city is ready to repeat. The algorithms that guided yesterday prepare to guide today, with tiny updates tucked in from the night's training. They will test their new nudges, but they will not overreach. If the update improves the outcome, it will stay. If it does not, it will roll back. The governance of models ensures this humility, rolling out changes slowly and watching carefully. People are never made the subject of experiments without consent. The ethics of the city is to favor steadiness and kindness over novelty. Below ground, the subway begins to stir. Air is flushed lightly through tunnels. Lights shift from night mode to dawn mode. Platform screens wake and begin their soft cadence. Conductors and drivers arrive and sit for a moment before their first run, letting the quiet of the morning carry them into the day. The car's systems run checks automatically, green indicators lining up in rows that signal readiness. You return to the apartment where you began, feeling how the entire city can be reduced, in a sense, to a series of soothing loops that seek a middle path. Your room holds a comfortable temperature. The blinds are in a position that offers privacy without total darkness. Somewhere in the background, a device is updating itself, but the process is bandwidth aware and energy aware. It uses a trickle of connection, finishing with no fanfare. The city is awake, and you are held within it. Imagine how these patterns touch every small experience of your day, and how they scale to the city as a whole. You wake and wash and travel. You work and wander and rest, and in each action there is a cushion. That cushion is the margin carefully preserved by gentle control, a margin that leaves you free to be unhurried. The gentle rhythm continues. You may think of algorithms as abstract, but here they become as tactile as the softness of light on a brick wall. They become the distance between you and the person ahead of you on a tram. They become the quiet effectiveness of a hospital vent, the way your parcel arrives looking unbruised, the way a park stays green in a drought without waste. In countless repeated actions, the city shows you its care. On a late evening walk, you enter a narrow street lined with lanterns, stirred by a slight breeze. A delivery bot rolls by, pausing at the edges of doorways where cats wander, steering wide with a mannerly path. Its map marks obstacles not as threats, but as features to collaborate with. The bot yields space politely, and its behavior encourages trust rather than wariness. Trust is the quiet coin of smart cities. It is earned in drips through thousands of small, considerate gestures. Across the river, a bridge senses the warm day's expansion and the cool night's contraction. Built-in monitors translate strain into numbers that engineers study over weeks and months. Maintenance is scheduled before cracks ever appear, and the bridge's own weight carries less worry. Some nights the lights on the bridge edge rest a little more because a bird migration passes, recognized by radar. The city dims certain areas to give the sky its corridor. The effect is a gentle compromise that allows many journeys. An electric substation at the city's edge has a garden planted around it. The plants are chosen to welcome pollinators and to absorb sound. Night insects move in calm patterns. The substation's low hum blends with crickets in a steady duet. Sensors along the fence ensure that only authorized entrances occur. Those sensors have tuned themselves to ignore the small movements of animals and the tickle of grasses in the wind. False alarms are rare. The city has learned how to distinguish the vulnerabilities that matter from the signals that do not. The smart city functions not as a giant brain issuing commands, but as a chorus of small minds humming along to the same tune. Each one is simple. Each one handles a tiny responsibility. Together, they create a habitat that favors rest as much as activity, sustenance as much as growth, and resilience as much as progress. The result is not flashy. It is comforting. You can picture time passing across this city like light flowing across a tabletop. Morning, day, afternoon, evening, night, and then morning again. Each cycle is an opportunity to learn one more gentle thing, to reduce one more bit of friction, to deepen one more foundation of trust. Because everything repeats, improvements compound slowly. Today's soft adjustment becomes tomorrow's baseline. Many of these changes would be invisible if not for the way they accumulate into quiet reliability. In the pre-dawn, before sunrise, sensors across the city brush themselves awake again for another day. The air is cool. The traffic is thin. The first vehicles begin their gentle arcs. Your building moves from night to day with a sequence of soft transitions. A coffee machine warms ahead of your routine by a few minutes, not because it anticipates your identity, but because it knows the habit of the household at this hour. This kind of knowledge forms a second skin around the city, a skin that flexes and supports rather than pinches. You find yourself at a window, watching as the sky brightens by degrees. Streetlights fade to their day posture and then rest. The birds are audible again. The pattern repeats. And now the city invites you to rest in your own way, whether the hour is early or late. If your eyes grow heavy, you can let them close. The systems we have traveled through will continue their calm repetition without needing supervision. They are built to carry on, to measure gently, to adjust with care, and to keep the shared habitat stable. Anytime you choose to step back in, the city will be there, its quiet loops ready to welcome your steps into their rhythm. As you settle, know that you are safe and that the gentle pulse of algorithms around you is one more lullaby in the chorus of the world. If this story of a hyper-connected smart city helped you unwind, you can leave a like and subscribe so we can keep releasing videos this often.